you returning, and we're so glad to see so many of you come back again. This is our 4th of 5 sessions. I don't want it to end, but we're getting close, and it's been a lot of good content along the way. I am Andrew Childers. I'm a market manager here at Steelhead Productions. And let me tell you that Steelhead is a live and virtual event marketing company that helps brands connect with their customers both face-to-face and digitally. And as I mentioned, this is number 4 of our 5 sessions. This one is the vending machine, which personally I'm so excited about. At events pre-COVID, I started seeing vending machines and these little moments come up. I thought, oh, this is a cool trend. And now to see this as a topic that the team's going to dive deep into, I am so excited to see it. So we've got a lot of good content for you coming up. This, like all the other sessions, is quite informative and enlightening, and it is centered on micro and macro trends, all designed to help you pivot into this newly emerging marketing world that we're all seeing unfold before all of us. I also want to mention, as I did to some of you previously, that if you move your cursor over the center bottom of your screen, you will reveal both the chat and the Q&A feature, and we want to hear from you. So as you're watching this presentation, if any question comes to mind, please just pop it in then. Don't wait, because we don't want you to forget, and fear not, you're not going to derail the presentation. Liz and I will hang on to all of your questions and answer them at the end. For any question we don't have time to get to, we have ways of following up. So don't worry about that. Also, to that end, we will send an email immediately following this presentation so that we can all follow up and you can book some time with Tom and his team to get a bit deeper into this and other content. So let me now turn it over to Tom, Steelhead Productions Chief Design Officer, who many of you know, the industry at large knows, because he has well over 20 years experience, and you name any big brand, he's likely done a high-profile event for them. He's also a celebrated speaker and faculty member of both HCEA and Exhibitor Live. And I always love bringing this up because it's my favorite picture of him. You, some years ago, may have seen him on the cover of Event Design magazine. So let me now turn it over to our Chief Design Officer here at Steelhead Productions, Mr. Tom Frisbee.
Thank you, Andrew. You always make us smile and look exceptionally youthful and effervescent, so we appreciate it. So, you know, we're talking. It is good lighting. It is good lighting. So today we're talking about the vending machine and what does that really mean, especially in the world of face-to-face. The reality is, in the world that we're living in, right, we are beginning to recognize that the real estate that we need, whether it be in a retail environment or otherwise, is not what it used to be, right? So we're being inspired by the vending machine because it is a mechanism that delivers a product in a very, very effective way. So, you know, it's proven that we can do a lot more with less. So if we look at retail, for instance, they've moved from the big box stores to online purchasing and mini marts. So in essence, we've gained a lot as a result of this, you know, event we call COVID, and we're going to use the vending machine to sort of inspire some of that. So some of the other programs that we've talked about certainly are Take Me Away, which is about escapism, the virtual playground, a very robust sort of conversation certainly in today, and we're adding to it daily because there's just so much coming out to help us keep connected. We talked about sensory deprivation on Tuesday, the vending machine today, and I think, again, one of the most amazing sessions that we're going to share with you, which will be next Tuesday, which will be the miniature magical moments, which are really how do we capture our audience with great mind share and make them stay connected with our brand. So that's the series. We look forward to you participating in next week's as well. You're also welcome to, you will be getting a follow-up with all of the content attached. So let's go ahead and move on. So as I was saying, this webinar is really not about vending machines. It's about what we can learn from them. You know, in this new world, how can we, you know, in a very small way, get a lot of return? So that said, It's got to be a give-get scenario, right? So, the one thing about a vending machine, right, is we give it something. We give it, either revenue, or we give it energy, or we give it information, and out of that comes something in return for us. So, the vending machine is basically an input device, and as a result of what, our customers put into that very small sort of presence, we need to give them a great engagement reward around that. So I'm going to use an example of one of my favorite companies, Zappos. All right, now they delivered a really, really clever sort of guerrilla marketing piece. So one of their competitors was in Austin and wanted to capture the attention of a lot of the locals. And so they were giving away a cupcake. And if you would take a picture in front of their logo with that cupcake and post it online, you would get the cupcake. Well, how did Zappos, combat that? I love this. They basically created this sort of cardboard box, right? And they walked up to their competitor, right, and asked the people that had participated in that activity to insert the cupcake that they had just gotten, and as a result, they would be happier. So take a look at what happens here. So the attendees, the participants are inserting their cupcake, and as a result of that, they're getting a great reward. So these are the kind of great magical moments that we really need to create for our customers, right? These are the kind of surprising elements that engage them in absolutely remarkable ways. I love it. Even the cupcake truck person was participating in that. So great gifts, great return, a great way of thinking in a very, very small sort of format. So we've got to be creative. We've got to do it really, really differently in order to connect with our customers. So in essence, right, we want our attendee, next slide, please. We want our attendee to really walk away happy. We want to be able to measure and gauge, their participation and give them something really remarkable as a result of that. So to the next slide. Size is not everything. We've got a new budget, right? And it's a new reality. So as we begin to face some of these budget challenges that we're certainly going to face moving forward, we've got to be much more clever in terms of what we deliver. And we've got to draw upon all kinds of inspiration, whether that be retail or guerrilla marketing methodology, or even something as simple as a vending machine, to give our customers something very, very different. So we're going to be showing you a lot of really different examples today, right? And we want you to be aware that they're really there to inspire you to do something different. Not all of them are applicable in the typical trade show world, right? But downsizing is the new reality. So moving on. All of that said, in the 25 plus years, and that's the new math because it's actually been a lot longer than that I've been in the industry, there's never been a world that's changing faster than ours. So I'm thrilled to have my team present some of the ideas that we're going to share with you today. Again, it's a remarkable world. Glad to be here with you. Now, the team actually asked me to share my favorite karaoke song. Of course, it's Rick James and Super Freak, and I'm not going to tell you what I was wearing when I actually performed it, but that said, let's move on with the rest of the team.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Well, hey, I'm Alex Lancuba. I'm a senior designer here at Steelhead Productions. And I'll tell you what, I couldn't be more proud to be a part of a team of creative ninjas, because that's essentially what they are. It's incredible every single day that the whole team surprises me of what they come up with. And so I'm just want to share that I'm extremely proud to be a part of the Steelhead team. And with that said, I will tell you that I am a bona fide design nerd. And we'll see some of my nerding out as we go into some of the examples today. But just a bit of backstory for me. So I have actually 9+ years of trade show industry experience, both in Australia, where I was born and raised, and here in the United States for the last 5 years. And so I've actually happened to be in Las Vegas for the entire time with Steelhead Productions for basically the second half of my career thus far. And I love to talk about future forward ideas, and some of the ideas that we're going to look at today really do kind of look back at some ideas that maybe haven't a bit of a classic nature to it, but can really provide a future forward mentality, especially in the new reality that we're living in. And as far as a karaoke song, so Tom just touched on the theme of delivering happiness. And this particular song for me, Tiny Dancer by Elton John, that's kind of my go-to happy song. So yeah, I'll pass the baton on to Angela now.
Hey everybody, it's Angela again. I'm an event designer here at Steelhead, and I'm definitely a creative dreamer. I'm passionate about helping people evoke emotions and connect and talk and really just create relationships. And so I'm so grateful that I get to do that and then nerd out about it on these webinars with you guys, because we really are nerds for engagement and experiences. So it's just really fun. I studied exhibits and events at Bemidji State University, and so grateful for that experience and that education to really just take that into my professional career. And my karaoke song is Love Shack Baby. Yeah, it's totally a jam. I have a vivid memory of singing that at my mom's wedding, and it's just ever since then, it's stuck with me.
And the girl can carry a tune, just to say. So there we
I'm
go.
always singing.
There we go. There we go. So, you know, I think it's really important for us to remember, and you're going to see this in this, you know, this new reality, that a small footprint is probably going to be part of the reality that we deal with, right? I mean, there was a time where 40 by 40 was small. You know, I think we're going to see a great reduction in space, and how we use that space, you know, whether it be something as small as a 10 by 10 or 20 by 20, or even ultimately some engagement activity, a pylon, something perhaps near the registration area to engage and energize and drive, is going to be critical and important. So we have to think of a smaller footprint with greater value, with bigger value. So it's going to be really important that we adapt and scale accordingly. So, but we do so intelligently. We don't just reduce size, because there's also the risk of reducing impressions. So how do we really get creative, as I've said over and over again, you know, in these difficult times, to present a great presence where we don't lose the connection that we have with our customers. So I think one of the other things that's coming out of this and on the other side of this event is, you know, looking at the actual ownership of properties and whether or not we do that. So, you know, I think an access model is something that we should certainly consider versus ownership. You know, the one thing that we have found as a result of this COVID event is our Earth, our environment, is getting healthier, right? We've also recognized that we don't have to go everywhere for everything. We don't necessarily have to chop down another forest to build a new exhibit. So I think as well, you know, there's also great savings in that. So when we look at access versus ownership and we really reevaluate how we're going to show, we should factor that as part of it, because some positive things have really come out of this event for our Earth alone, right? We've also recognized that we can do things virtually that we couldn't do before, or we wouldn't even consider before. So that's certainly something that we need to be considerate of as we embrace this new world. Go ahead. So I think it's really important. I love this image, all right, that designers found this just for me. Emphasize the best and minimize the rest. Actually, they bought me the XXL size of this, so I'm just loving it. It's basically become my nightshirt. So let's not minimize creativity in that whole process. You know, up our game, you know, really emphasize the best that we have to offer. Do it very creatively. Next. So it doesn't mean that we erase the engagement experiences. In fact, we need to elevate those. And how we do that is absolutely critical. We've got a lot of new, really exciting ways to do that virtually and with great digital components. And we need to be certainly sensitive to our messaging, at the same time, not lose the personal touch. So it's sort of old world with new world as we move forward. And then finally, with one stat. So this is the important thing to remember as we consider how we're going to have to, embrace this new reality. And that's that 74% of people are more likely to purchase after attending a branded event. Now, that doesn't mean in person, right? That means after attending any kind of branded event, virtual or otherwise. So when we're back, in a face-to-face scenario, or we're doing a hybrid event, or we're actually doing just a virtual event, we've got to make sure that we're touching our audience in the most effective ways, that we're branding ourselves, in an appropriate way, delivering on our message, as well as delivering a great memory. That said, we're going to see some really exciting stuff here moving forward. So light bulb moments on. I'm going to hand it over to Alex. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom, for that great setup. And yeah, today, I mean, we're really going to be looking at a lot of different concepts that really, can really inform our new reality and what we can do with the criteria that Tom identified with, making sure that we can address scale, but at the same time, making sure that we can uphold that give-get scenario in a really, fun, interactive way that really, delivers on that whole theme of today's webinar, which is happiness. And, so we're really going to be leaning on the wonderful world of experiential marketing because it really is a treasure trove of different creative ideas that we can lean on to inform how we can bring those kind of experiences onto the trade show floor in our environments. And keep in mind, some of these elements actually do have virtual components to it as well. So there's things to consider around that as well. But obviously, we are facing a new reality, so we do have to keep in mind the economic factors and also the tactical factors. And one of which is, obviously touchscreens is certainly something that we really need to address and reconsider as far as in this post-COVID world, when we go back to live events, we need to consider maybe more contactless experiences, in a way to really make sure that we are keeping things obviously safe, but at the same time, like you saw earlier with the up our game quote, let's not minimize the creativity here. And so, we need to come up with ideas to create snack-sized experiences. Now, of course, we need to have budget-healthy snack-sized experiences around that. So, a lot of the concepts that we're going to explore today do certainly have scale in mind. Some actually don't necessarily apply to that particular rule, but they have concepts that we can consider when coming up with our own ideas when we're introducing some engagement points which actually have that give-get scenario, much like a vending machine. And so we can really categorize a minimal footprint engagement into three categories, and one of which is high tech, one which is low tech, and one which has no tech at all. And so the examples that we're about to look at can certainly fit into one of these three categories. So without further ado, we'll look at the overview of all of the examples, and we do have a lot again. We've got this pretty information dense, but we're going to cover a lot in the short period of time that we have today. So, and we're going to bookend this with, as I said, the theme of happiness today. So the first one is going to be Smiles for Miles, a really great campaign in Canada. And then the next is going to be a car vending machine, which, as mentioned, we do have an exception to the rule of the scale factor, but we're going to hone in on a certain component around that. And then we have a smart car example, F1 tickets challenge. And this section that we get to is going to really pivot around community involvement and really, how to crowdsource a fun experience where everyone around can really, have some kind of participation involved. And then social mosaic, and so a really fun way to crowdsource essentially art. And there's also a virtual method to that as well. We have a great campaign from Australia, actually, for Stop Melanoma. And then we're going to go into a really fun physical type of experience, which is going to be Motion Maestro, a great campaign from McDonald's. And then Text for Candy, which is basically going to be a really interesting way to activate a billboard in a really intriguing way. And then we're going to look at a really great campaign from BeautyCon for Love, Beauty and Planet, which introduces a really great no-tech example. And then we have more physical, examples to look at, which is going to be LED Run, which is actually a design that we in-house worked on. And then there's going to be a really great way to interact with our own mobile devices with Drinkable Billboard, Dance Break again, which is going to be more along the lines of physical activity, and then walking compliments, and you're going to love that one. If only we had more of those around the place, and you'll see what we mean when we dive right into that. And last but not least, which is based around a campaign called Choose Happiness, which is tweet your flavor. So there's some components here which has some great social media interaction as well. So some really great campaigns that you can think of when we do get back to live events, and how we can find a way to integrate them into our active marketing campaign. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the first example, which is Smiles for Miles. So as mentioned, this is a campaign done by Air Miles Canada, which they were able to install a retrofitted vending machine into various shopping stores, whether it be the grocery stores, and they were able to have this booth activation, which allowed their customers to actually hold up their ID card, their Air Miles card, but what they had to do in order to win a gift on the inside of that vending machine, which was in traditional vending machine fashion, they'd actually have to give their best smile, and in exchange they would actually see the gifts basically dispensed out, and obviously the actual physical gift itself would be sent to their email, and they would be able to, and it's really pretty remarkable seeing the kind of joy that this particular campaign sparks. So really a way to really use happiness as the vehicle to really create a wonderful experience. And so really the give-get scenario here is just give a smile in exchange for a really wonderful received gift. So the next one, you've probably seen the Carvana ads all over the place, and so we're likely all familiar with this concept. And so obviously the actual physical vending machine is certainly not scalable and doesn't fit into the snack size experience category. However, there is one particular component that I would like to hone in on, and that is the insert token. That's basically the sweet spot of this whole interaction, is basically the token machine, because the way that they've been able to introduce such a classic vintage look into such a future forward concept is really interesting. So, obviously that could be a real tactile example of showcasing, how you could actually create a vending machine-like experience within your environment. So, basically with a supersized coin token, but we just believe it's really clever. And the way that the whole sequencing of this interaction, insert your token, watch your card being retrieved. And I think after watching Hamilton last week, I'm mesmerized by spinning stages. So that whole tower really does a great job of really basically, spitting out your car from the actual tower vending machine. You're able to take it for a spin and sign and drive it away. So with that in mind, the next example is actually based in Tokyo, Japan, by Smart Car. And so this is actually a real vending machine. And again, doesn't necessarily fit into the snack size experience category, but there's a really interesting concept around this particular interaction. So as you can see here, you actually fill out a customizable form. So basically, you get to customize your vehicle. You fill out that form, you insert it into your car, and there's basically like an LED panel which showcases some of the customizations of the vehicle that you're selecting. And then once you insert your card, scan a QR code to make your payment. What will happen as of that point is your order form will be sent straight to the manufacturer, and what will come out of that machine is actually a branded canister, which will have the printed information. So there's actually a printer on the inside of this vending machine, which will print obviously your order form, your confirmation receipt, and obviously some information on the actual vehicle that you just purchased. So really interesting way to have that vending machine-like experience for automotive, which is pretty amazing. So the next example is a lot of fun, because this is basically the best way to crowdsource talent and really bring the best out in people. So Heineken always do incredible marketing experiences. And they actually, and this is actually in Australia as well, they actually had a partnership with Formula One, where their intent was to challenge pedestrians, anyone who was passing by these billboards, essentially, at very specific moments in time when they actually have the velvet rope and the green carpet, to actually step up to the plate and actually showcase any hidden talents that you have. And with that in mind, you actually have a Heineken hostess who's basically in an off-site studio, who's actually you're conversing with on the other end. So basically, you have a conversation going on, and if your talent has basically impressed the hostess and the team on the other end, what will actually happen is they have the ability to send through Formula One tickets and dispense that out of the machine. So you can see here the guys just won tickets to the Formula One, which is pretty incredible, just for showing a bit of talent, whether a magic trick or anything like that. So it's just a really great way to even create more of like a show experience for any pedestrians walking by. They can actually see this experience taking place, and really get basically a free show out of this. So really the one thing that we want to point out is, how can we introduce an experience like this onto the trade show floor? I mean, this is really a great way to stop the foot traffic in their tracks and just see some, and really get some crowd participation as well. And we're going to see more examples of that as well, because some of the examples that we see of crowd participation, it does get physical and a lot of fun. So we'll showcase that as we move through this. So in the theme of crowd participation, this is a really awesome way to crowdsource art. So this is done by a company called Luster, and what I love about this concept is how scalable it is. So you're able to see, an artwork come to life by anyone who comes by the actual experience. They're able to take a photo, use a very specific hashtag, and what would happen is they were able to print the actual image that they just took a photo of, and it would actually have an algorithm generate a specific number, which is basically a placement on the artwork. So you could basically place the photo that you just took, that they would print out for you, and position it on the wall. And so really a great way to get people to really build the experience and really take part. And as I said, I love how scalable this is. So for a real life example, like, I mean, obviously it is a wall application, so it's going to be minimal footprint here, but we're just showcasing this as a mock-up to showcase, this wall, for example, could be the main central focal point for this engagement. That said, I mean, it can certainly fit on a wall that's only 7 or 5 feet wide, if we have more of a scalable version of this. So what I think is so ingenious about this as well is they've been able to create a virtual version of this. So obviously that's the world that we live in right now. We live in a virtual world, and we're really leaning heavily on the virtual aspects of these kind of marketing campaigns. So same principle applies here. You do take a photo, use the hashtag to generate a photo, and that would actually find its place and actually have an automated algorithm to position it within the artwork. So, if this was your campaign, you would actually be able to showcase this via means of social media, that your artwork is in the process of coming to life. And so the last one I'm going to share with you today before we hand it over to Angela is another campaign in Australia for Stop Melanoma. So this is basically from the Melanoma Institute of Australia, where they introduce into like a billboard format, again, low footprint, a contactless payment where you're able to make a contribution and donate, less than $2, just, basically by, by scanning your card. And obviously with Apple Pay and Samsung Pay, you can actually easily scan it with your phone as well. And what you'll actually see is visual feedback of the melanoma actually contract, so that way you can visually see that your contribution is making a difference. And so much like a vending machine, you are basically having an input exchange going on. But basically, you know, this is more of a give-give scenario where you're actually making a contribution, but what you receive on the other end is visual feedback that you are making a difference. So really, again, in the theme of community involvement, you're really a part of the solution to really make the experience come to life and evolve. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Angela, who will take us into Motion Maestro.
Okay, so Motion Maestro, I love this example that McDonald's did in the Netherlands. So they had a exclusive burger that they wanted to promote, only available in the Netherlands. So outside of a McDonald's, actually in a mall, they created this digital interactive engagement that allowed the user to virtually conduct their own orchestra. So because, you know, this burger is a deluxe burger, they really wanted to give it a classier, artisanal appearance, right? And, you know, normally you wouldn't associate McDonald's with classical music or an orchestra, but they wanted to switch it up and, you know, really use that element of surprise. So the user would come up to the interactive area, and there would be a black conductor stand, and they would start to use their hands and motion as though they are leading the orchestra. And, you know, as you're moving, there is a cursor that goes across, so you're aware that it's picking up your motion. But my favorite part of this is that while you're doing this, the burger actually is animated, and it comes apart and then contracts back together, almost like an accordion. So this is such a fun way to get some audience engagement, get people moving. And, you know, this is not in a McDonald's. You know, think of this as maybe a potential sponsorship opportunity, you know, a way to drive traffic to your store or to your exhibit space, and, you know, really just promoting whatever it is your campaign may be. Okay, so this one, these are all fun, honestly, but I love this one too. So text for candy. So basically, this is a really great, innovative way to incorporate sampling, as well as it's very low tech. So all they had to do was, you know, when they walk by and they see a cow head sticking out of a, you know, what is normally like a billboard, they are encouraged to send a message and just text the number, and then they receive a sample-sized cow pie. So what I love about this is that, you know, it's really low tech. It's almost contactless, and they're able to use their own personal devices to walk away with something that allows them to activate that sense of taste and, you know, remember that I mean, have you ever gotten a candy bar out of a billboard? I think it's just such a unique and innovative way to incorporate sampling. So love this one. So the next one that we're going to talk about is a installation for Love, Beauty, and Planet at BeautyCon New York City in 2019. So I actually went to this show, and it was amazing. There were so many great experiential aspects, but I love what they did here. So they were actually the official recycling partner or recycling sponsor for BeautyCon in New York City. And so they used their space to really encourage the attendees to show small acts of love to our wonderful planet. So this is an amazing example of a no-tech experience that allows the user to still get that vending machine-like engagement. They still walk away with something. So what they would do is they would come up to the space, and they would pull open the bin on the bottom, and they would throw any cardboard or plastic that they'd acquired over the show or had in their purse, whatever it may be. After they did that, then they're instructed to share their small acts of love using the hashtag on social media. So this ties it into social media and gives the brand presence on multiple different platforms. And then they, you can see in the bottom bottom left photo, you can see 3 little girls opening the door, and they are grabbing their goodie bag of Love and Beauty, or Love, Beauty, and Planet products. And then they get to go and see, you know, the surprise element. They don't know what they're going to get, and they get to check that out. But I love this because it's no tech, it's interactive. And I think what's cool is that as the show progresses, you know, you can see through the translucent heart how much people are participating in the collective impact that this show and these people have made on our environment. So really bringing in that social aspect and caring for the planet. And I thought this was a really great interactive sponsorship opportunity. Okay, so this next one, the LED run, this is a concept that we presented for one of our clients that was going to be exhibiting at Black Hat for the first year. So they are a company that specializes in workforce development for cybersecurity. So they have created a platform that trains cybersecurity professionals through gamified challenges. So they wanted their space to represent that. Now, what I think is important to note is that they only had a 10 by 10 space at this show. But just because your space is small doesn't mean it can't be impactful. So what they would do is one of these interactive concepts that we presented was that they would come up to the space and they would step on these censored pads, and then they are running. They're actually racing the person next to them. So maybe it's their coworker or their friend or some random stranger. But they are racing, it's getting movement, and you know, it attracts the eyeballs of other attendees and people walking by. You know, I think Tom said to me the other day, activity creates and generates more activity. So, you know, you're able to draw people into the space by creating, you know, I mean, imagine these people just running, they're kind of waddling, and you know, it really is a great interactive experience that is completely contactless. All right, so the next one that we're going to talk about is the Drinkable Billboard. So this was a fairly large campaign that Coca-Cola did to kind of get people re-excited in drinking more Coke Zero. So they created a digital commercial, or a drinkable commercial, but then they added multiple other components to this. So here you can see in the video that the user is actually able to interact with this digital ad using their own personal device. So they partnered with Shazam, and whenever a user would see this ad, they were able to go onto the Shazam app and click, you know, Shazam, but it wouldn't be a song. It would actually show up as a cup or as a straw, and then they're able to, you know, drink the Coca-Cola, you know, right out of that bottle, or the Coca-Cola fills up their glass. So I think this is a really great supplement to the, you know, that sense of taste. You know, they're still getting that vibe, and they're still getting to drink the product, but it's in a digital way, and they're able to use their own personal devices, which I think a lot of people will be more comfortable with as we go back to face-to-face. Now, I think when we're thinking, okay, how does this translate to our industry, or where could we put this? Imagine that as you're registering for the show, this is a sponsorship activation, and you can see and promote a certain product, and then help drive that that traffic to your space, where you would continue talking about the campaign. And maybe, for example, in Coca-Cola's exhibit space, they would then have you know, more of the billboard installation that actually dispenses the Coca-Cola for the users. So a great way to use multiple components and digital aspects to allow people to interact with your product. Okay, so the next one is dance break. All right, we all know, or most of us should know, because it's been a long time campaign for Kit Kat, take a break with Kit Kat, right? So they encouraged commuters to take a break with Kit Kat in 3 simple steps at a bus stop in Columbia. So what would happen is it was a reactive screen, and as they were waiting, they would be kind of invited to participate in a dance-off. So the first thing they'd do is they'd learn the moves. They'd get them down. You know, the screen shows, okay, this is the sequence, and then it's performance time. So then they are actually dancing it out. It's their turn. They're trying to get all the moves right. So you can see on the left of the video there, there's the stars. So as you complete the different levels, those stars fill up. And finally, once you've completed and won the dance off, you're rewarded with a Kit Kat bar. Now, what I think is the most genius thing about this engagement is where it was located. This activation is located in a place where people are waiting. They're not really doing anything. They're just sitting, waiting for their bus to get to their next place. Well, I mean, I would certainly rather dance at a bus stop and then get a candy bar than just like, you know, sit on the hard bench. So this is just a great way to think of, okay, maybe we've got this outside of the food court where people are kind of waiting outside of the exhibit hall and they're, you know, just talking with their coworkers. Okay, well, we can use those spaces where people are just congregating and create a brand presence. Okay, walking compliments. So this is another type of billboard advertisement, but this has a really cool virtual element to it. So Nutella wanted to really just bring some happiness and some joy to people. So they set up this, this engagement in Amsterdam. And what it was actually a talking Nutella jar. So as people would walk by, you can see on the screen, a Dutch comedian would actually give compliments out. Oh, that is a lovely bike wheel you have. Or I absolutely love your smile. And all of these fun kind of compliments, but you know, it's a comedian, it's this power of playfulness and an element of surprise. Imagine if you were walking into the Las Vegas Convention Center, you know, going into CES and a billboard starts talking to you. I mean, that's just hilarious. So I think that these digital ads and these digital pylons are really great ways to engage at alternative events outside of our exhibit hall to help drive space to our actual environment, our actual floor space, and they get to have the virtual element to it, right? So there's somebody actually talking to them. So this person has actually set up off-site and they're able to see through the camera and then communicate with the people walking by. You know, as we transition back to face-to-face, it's going to be this hybrid type of thing, some virtual, some face-to-face. So I thought this was such a great way of kind of meshing those two together and creating this virtual in-person experience. Okay, lastly, this is my personal favorite. You know, Coca-Cola, they always do great experiences. So this one, they were, you know, kicking off their Choose Happiness campaign in the UK. So they chose 3 London train stations that were the busiest, and then they created this Twitter-powered vending machine. So what they asked the consumer to do was come up to the space, tweet their favorite flavor, what flavor makes you the happiest. And so then they would add the Choose Happiness hashtag to whatever platform or to Twitter. And then it would dispense a matching shirt to whatever Coca-Cola product you chose. So not only is this a really fun, innovative way to give swag away, it's a great way to tie it to social media, but having a really low-tech experience that still gives your brand a huge presence.
Well done, guys. Truly, truly some great ideas. I think it's important for us to remind ourselves, though, that, you know, all of these ideas certainly come from different areas, and that's what's going to need to inspire us in order to move forward. Certainly, you know, we're seeing a lot of guerrilla marketing pieces. We're seeing a lot of retail applications, a lot of things that are out of the context of the world that we know today. And it's going to be important as we've, as I'm getting tired of the word pivot too, to be honest with you. as we change and shift, right, and embrace this new reality, that we look outside of the context of the world that we know. So please look at all of those as, you know, the pylons could be used very easily as a sponsorship piece right near the registration area. Any one of those, as you reduce your footprint, are a great way of delivering something really, really memorable, right, and clever and creative. So look at all of these ideas as an inspiration, not as, you know, that's not in the world that we live in, because the world's going to be, you know, vastly different. So, you know, again, it's also important to remember that we're going to have to, you know, scale appropriately. There's no question about that, as we have to look at virtual connectivity, and there certainly will be a huge shift in that category. How are we going to spend our dollars wisely? Also, you know, as I said earlier, you know, the reduction of footprint, as well as the reduction of, you know, all of the other related costs, and the benefit that it has to our planet. So whether you're looking at rental solutions in the future, reduction in footprint, as well as digital, there's benefit to all of those as long as we keep them human. You know, we understand that the point is to engage and inform and leave a great impression with our customers. So we thank you for participating in this session as well. I know there's some great questions that came up. Terry had a couple, and I'll let both Andrew and Liz go through those questions, and we'll do what we can to answer them for you.
Thank you. And as always, before we jump into the questions, let me quickly remind everybody that we will have our next session again at the same time on Tuesday. That will be Miniature Magical Moments, which I'm quite excited for. And that's our last one, the 5th of 5 online sessions. It's gone by so fast, but such good content. So make sure to mark your calendars and join us again on Tuesday at the same time for that session. Now jumping into the questions, we've had them coming on different screens, so the panel may or may not have seen all these.
Yeah.
The first question is there a rule of thumb on how much information I should try to capture in a give-get scenario without annoying my audience?
Oh, that's a really good one, because, you know, they will opt out immediately if it's too much. But if you layer that give-get, now in a miniature version like a vending machine, it's going to have to be direct and, you know, 3 questions, bang, 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 right? But when you've got a more expansive sort of engagement opportunity, and we're doing this for a lot of our virtual pieces, how do you layer those questions intelligently and weave them into the progress? So, you know, we encourage the attendee to do a deeper dive, you know, that we take them to something really engaging and interesting, and then we ask another set of questions, no more than 3. Then they engage in another activity, they do a deeper dive, and they do a deeper dive. And we gather the information that way. Otherwise, you put them off immediately. Good question, though. It's a really good question. We're facing that a lot with our virtual solutions.
I think this next question that just popped in from Terry helps build off of that. Is it easy to continue after event brand evangelism with participants? You know, how do you continue that conversation with folks?
You know, Terry always asks great questions. Thank you, Terry. Absolutely, and making sure that you've built into the system, you know, an engagement protocol that's, you know, pre, at, post, that the line of continuity is strong, that the connection is strong, that it's human, right? That it leaves our post attendees still smiling, and, you know, that was a great experience, and remembering who we were and what our message was at any, whether it be virtual or face-to-face or hybrid. Yeah.
And the next question dives into some of the logistics around one of the examples that you shared with the Motion Maestro. Are there any specific motion or lighting requirements that you're aware of, or any other specifics such as, you know, does it need to happen indoor versus outdoor? Can you talk to some of the specifics of logistics that people will run into as they implement some of these cool solutions you shared with us?
Well, let me pass those to the team. I have a tendency to be big picture blue skies. So when it comes to, you know, managing those, it's best that we have more detail focused people on that one. Alex?
Sorry, I just realized I was on mute there. Yeah, in regards to lighting, you know, there's so much flexibility around that. I mean, if this engagement was, if we, for example, wanted to position this front and center within the environment, kind of like what we showed that example of with Ultimate Software with the art piece, with the crowdsourced art, it can really be something that has to do with the positioning as well. But I think in terms of lighting, I mean, this really does run off the actual billboard itself. So really, it's using motion detection to really capture your movements. So obviously, there's going to be audio requirements as well. I know that you can't specifically hear the audio on this example, but you want to have some built-in speakers to make sure that the audible feedback is sufficient enough, so that way anyone who's getting involved can really feel like they are in control of the actual interaction taking place. So I think that there's more factors than the lighting that does take place with this, but I think no more than what we typically would light, say, for example, a demo environment.
And they can be
cool,
they can be positioned inside and out. They can be positioned inside and out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, given that it's a minimal footprint, interaction and engagement, I mean, yeah, there's so much flexibility as where this can be positioned as well. So whether it's, front and center near the aisle, or whether it's more internal within the center of the space.
Yep.
Yeah.
Understood. And real quickly, I just want to highlight some of the great comments that have been coming up in the chat feature. Caleb mentioned a moment ago, getting customers to promote the brand is the ultimate goal for me. That's a true accomplishment. And we see that in so many of the examples you all have shared with us here. So I thought that was definitely worth highlighting. Amy just posted a moment ago, too. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Caleb also mentioned a Coors vending machine. I love that one. That was a great one. It'll stick with me. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, he hit the nail on the head with that one, especially with the social media engagement points in some of these examples. I think that's just a really amazing introduction that you can bring into your engagement, making sure that social media plays a part as well. I think will really kind of drive a lot of what Caleb's talking about with really getting them to promote, actively on social media.
Well, and I think too, it's just really important to give people an experience that they want to share. So when we put the customer first, we put the user first, we have to look at, okay, what are they coming here for? Is my target audience, are they going to want to do something funky and fun, or is something that is more like sustainability focused, like the Love and Beauty Planet? Is that going to engage them? Or just those different things. What is going to catch my audience's attention, and then how can we encourage them to share it?
Right, know your audience. Such a good point, Angela. As we come up close to the top of the hour, we'll wrap up with our final couple questions here. There is a good quick question here, which is, what are some of the metrics that we can use to measure interactions like these?
That's a great question, and it's certainly an important, part of everything that we do these days. The technology that we use is key, and in terms of number of touch points, how does it aggregate past this? How is it integrated into your Salesforce or whatever your tracking system is all really important. That can all be, for the technology-driven solutions, that can all be built into this. I know, for instance, for the smart car, and we showed you that smart car vending machine, right? They got great information up front. They were able to identify who the attendee was, what specifically they had asked about, and then identify who was their local car dealer. And then all of that information went directly to the car dealer, and it became part of their sales force as well. So having intelligent tracking is key. And the more you do it, the more you can justify what we do.
That pivots perfectly into this final question that we just received from Caleb. I see these vending machines have been deployed across various places around the world in these examples. How do you identify the potentially highest engagement places for these machines? Obviously, it depends on your customer persona and knowing who you're trying to reach, but generally, where do you want to look first?
Absolutely, you want high traffic area. You also want to understand, to your point though, Andrew, who is that audience in that area. So, you know, if you're going to be doing something that may be related to sports and having it in a, you know, in a sports venue or near a sports venue, again, identifying who your audience is, you know, where they're going to be, there's going to be greater dwell time for that audience is key. And it, you know, so you're getting a much more vetted crowd or participation than otherwise. So yeah, really great question. That's a great question. So
we'll let that be the last word. I want to really thank Tom and his team, Angela and Alex, also Liz in the background who runs the technical side of all this. Thank you all again for some fantastic content. We will see you back here again on Tuesday for Miniature Magical Moments. That will be at the same time. I also want to remind all of you that you should keep an eye out for an email from us. Shortly after this presentation, we will be following up with you. That way you can engage with us, and you can even book some time with Tom and his team and me so we can have a deeper conversation about how we can help you implement these and some other great ideas into your marketing mix. You can also check us out, of course, at exhibithappy.com. Thank you, Tom and team, so much for another great session.